I want to show this thread right here.
Goodness.
From Aram Sabeti. He is a gentleman inventor, founder, and former CEO, and he has his Twitter thread. This is the one I was looking for. He says, "Sorry, New York Times, I declined to be interviewed. The harassment of Barry Weiss and Scott Alexander are only two of the more recent reasons I no longer trust your paper. Helping elect Donald Trump is another. I encourage others in tech to boycott the New York Times." I don't know what he means by helping elect Donald Trump, but he received this message saying, "I'm a columnist at the New York Times. I found your experiments with GPT-3 very interesting. I'm writing, are you free to chat? Blah, blah, blah. Best." He then says, "The data makes it plain that the New York Times has abandoned its commitment to nonpartisan reporting. When the internet threatened their business, they made a devil's bargain to amplify outrage and us versus them psychology. Racism wasn't a new problem in 2014, but their stock being down was." Take a look at these graphs.
Zing. I wish we can zoom in on that. We can't,
So,
right?
so yeah, it's going to be hard enough to see for everybody, but I can explain it. The first little box says from 1970 to 2018, instances of its word frequency. Sexism bounces around, and then around 2010, it skyrockets straight up. Misogyny, straight up. Sexist, straight up. Patriarchy, mansplaining, toxic masculinity, male privilege, feminism, women empowerment. These words, they're so obvious. Racism, racists, institutional racism, systemic racism, whiteness, white privilege. All of these words, they hockey stick around the exact same time.
Wow.
2010,
when they made a devil's bargain.
Yep.
Racism wasn't a new problem, but their stock being down
Yep.
was. Talk about a zinger.
Boom.
Look at this, man. And I've seen this stuff before. This is when the New York Times realized they weren't going to be able to compete with the likes of BuzzFeed, Vox, the Huffington Post. The Huffington Post was getting big because people loved going in the comments and yelling at each other. So all of these companies made a devil's bargain. We're going to sell out. We're going to make content specifically to make you hate everyone else and encourage you to fight each other in the comments and just inflame tensions because we want to extract as much as we can from the system before it blows up.
And just sit behind and just watch you two battle while we make all the money.
It reminds me of a kind of digital fracking,
Yep, it's the housing bubble popping in 2008. Well, this is the media bubble. It's popping, and it's about to pop.
Definitely, it's been tumbling quite a bit. Like,
Yep.
No matter what they do, they're being strained and it's collapsing.
Yep.
So what do? Because they've all basically decided, well, let's just be evil, right? We'll be evil. Hey, why not?
Let's be open about it too. They're not even holding back anymore.
They start running
Seriously.
fake stories about people like me. And they start going after other, pundits and personalities on social media, their direct competition.
and banning them.
Yes.
Getting them banned.
Yep.
Someone wrote, was it CNN who wrote to someone like you should ban them because they're our competition? We talked about it like a month ago. I don't remember.
Oh yeah, the Federalist.
Yeah, the Federalist.
They didn't say because they're our competition. They
right.
were like,
I know, but come on.
And
come on.
Yep. And it
Yeah.
happened. And I believe to this day, could be wrong, that you cannot Google search my YouTube channel.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So if you go to Google, it may have changed. It may have changed.
It's this show. It's our show now. You can probably find.
Yes.
And it probably helped you out.
Yep. So for the longest time, because of this fake news, if you tried to YouTube search Tim Pool's YouTube or Tim Pool YouTube, it won't show you my channel.
Yeah, it's only IRL.
Only you did
Still,
it.
you just checked it?
I just checked it.
Only because this is a
IRL.
new
and your
channel.
Twitter. Yeah.
So what happened is fake news wrote fake things about me.
Of
And
course.
it's really funny because I worked for Vice. I worked for ABC News. Within the span of 3 weeks, Vice News wrote that I was an online lefty and a right winger.
Both.
Yes. Yep.
That's funny.
I've had the Today Show air overt lies they made up entirely.
Wow.
The Today Show, because we're the competition for them,
Yep, I
and
see
they're
that.
desperate. So what happens? YouTube also makes a deal with the devil. Seeing the same problems, YouTube gets scared that they're being attacked by legacy media and tells legacy media, we'll do whatever you say.
On that note, I'm just going to take a little tidbit of time to tell you to share. Please share our videos, share our show.
First rule of IRL.
Send it into the airwaves because we are not CNN. We don't have the power of Google helping us out. Go ahead.
Check this out. I want to show you this Aram, his
yeah.
Twitter thread. He says, how does the New York Times compete with YouTube? Identity equals virality was the BuzzFeed formula with articles like X things only a Y would understand. Ezra Klein says, outrage is deeply connected to identity. The New York Times is now functionally BuzzFeed with a cultured facade. He highlights Ezra Klein. He says, Ezra Klein does a great job explaining what happened. The internet means news has to compete with more entertainment options and no longer has to appeal to any particular geographic region containing people with diverse values. The producers of politicized media are themselves the most voracious consumers of politicized media. The resulting distorted worldview is what leads the New York Times to assure us Trump had no chance in 2016. What happened in 2016 with them saying Trump was going to lose is still happening to this day.
Yep.
They don't want to anger their audience. They don't want to say things like Trump is actually winning because their audience will get mad and they won't click the article. So they tell the audience whatever they want to hear. And you know how I know this? I was told to do the same thing when I worked for an ABC News Univision joint venture, when they told me straight up, quote, side with the audience. What does that mean? I asked. And they said, side with the audience, right? What does the audience expect? And so I asked the president of the company, are you saying that if there is a fact-based news story that could offend our audience, we won't report it? And he said, I think that's fair, yes.
Wow.
We were in a big meeting for the presidential conventions in 2016. And someone asked at this big meeting of like 40 people, how are we playing this? Are we left? Are we right? Center? And they said, side with the audience.
That's gross.
Who's the audience? Young progressives, they said. And my response to this, I kept telling these guys, the company lit all the money on fire when it went up in flames. And I said, your audience is not young progressives. You are targeting young progressives.
Boom.
Who make up a tiny percentage of the overall marketplace.
Well, we talked about it earlier. Who's the demographic that are mostly online? The people that are the younger generations. So they're trying to target the people that are active on the internet. And anyone in their 20s right now is active on the internet. Always, every day. They're constantly on their phone, scoping, whatever, sharing. That's the norm now. But it's not for the older generations.
They were trying to make basically a 20-year plan, thinking if young people are progressive, then we want to make media for them so they will age into it, and we will have a captured audience once they move into their 30s and become the powerful key demo. It didn't work, probably because for the same reason Donald Trump won, they don't understand what's really going on, and they're all spinning around in a toilet with each other, thinking they're getting reality, but it is a bubble. When Bill Barr was asked about systemic racism by the Democrat, he said, actually, a police officer is more likely to be, I think 18 times more likely to be killed by, an individual in the street than a black person is to be killed by a police officer.
It is 18 times, yeah.
Something like that. And their response was like, how could he think that? He must be in a bubble. Madeline Dean, I think her name was, said he must be in a bubble. And it's amazing. It's like, have you considered you're in a bubble?
Someone's in a bubble.
How disrespectful. He was so disrespectful. That pissed me off. They're trying to say like he's in the bubble. He was disrespectful. Like that was literally all of you. The entire time we're sitting in a bubble, being as disrespectful as possible to cut him off so he couldn't actually slam you with the truth.
If someone knew this, if there was any one person who knew the stats as it pertains to crime in this country, I'd imagine the attorney general would be one of the foremost experts.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a good point.
Running the DOJ, the FBI, all of our, what? Could you imagine, a Republican yelling at a doctor like, about vaccines being, causing autism or something? Like just telling the doctor, I know better than you. I know you must be in a bubble. And them being like, dude, listen, I'm a doctor. That's what they're doing. Yeah. The reason I use that specifically is because they constantly make that argument like they are the people who are allowed to defy the experts and no one else.
Yeah.
So when you have, for instance, doctors stepping up talking about certain medications, and then they're like, ban all of those doctors, don't let them speak on the internet because we are the experts.
We know. It's like, wait, are you doctors? No, we don't need to look at the information.
But what do all of their silly memes say? Why won't the right listen to the doctors?
I haven't seen those memes, but
it is.
I tend to avoid memes.
When it comes to masks and when it comes to vaccines, they all complain about how the right won't listen to doctors.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, there are a lot of people that won't. They absolutely won't. You know what? I defer to the experts. I'll tell you what, when Bill Barr sitting there as the expert gives you an answer, you don't say, I'm right and you're wrong. These people live in a bubble. Listen, I want to show you this chart again and explain to you New York Times word usage frequency. I feel bad for these people. You know why?
Why?
They grew up being told that the New York Times was the gray lady, the paper of record.
Oh, yeah.
And so they believe it. They trust it. It's our good and honest journalism, but they're not getting it. Look at all this insanity. Almost every single one of these little boxes shows a hockey stick, cultural appropriation, microaggressions, bullied, exploited, discrimination. And these Democrats are reading all of this, believing it as law. They're in a bubble. They're being lied to by a media organization that is dying and trying to extract as much as possible before the ship collapses.
Yep.
Then
Absolutely. They go nailed it, dude.
Then they can't understand why the attorney general tells them you were wrong, that the systemic racism problem you're bringing up isn't real. And they say, how could that be? I read it in the New York Times.
Reclaiming my time before you're able to speak any more truth at me.
And that's why they wouldn't let him speak.
I know.
Because
it's so obvious.
These Democrats are smart enough to get elected. They're the grifters who know they're manipulating the ignorant who are walking like lemmings off the cliff.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, as long as they're walking off the cliff and they hand me a couple gold shillings before they jump off the edge, I'm happy.
Yep.
And that's what it is. The Republicans were more than happy to let Bill Barr say whatever he wanted. Mr. Barr, can you answer the question? Go for it. Because they knew that Bill Barr was going to just lay it out and they had nothing to fear.
Yep.
So look, man, when you hear from these people that, like what this man here, Aram, is saying, that there's politicized media, it is a fact. We are absolutely politicized media here at Timcast IRL.
Definitely.
I try my best to make sure I'm following an eclectic bunch, and I try my best to understand where these narratives are coming from. And I think it's fair to say that when you have the right being the big tent with former progressives, former liberals, moderates, centrists, conservatives, and staunch conservatives all agreeing the left is going off the rails, we're also all agreeing the New York Times is pumping out fake news, and then we can see literal evidence they're doing it.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but we're not on the wrong side of this one.
Nope.
I'll put it very, very bluntly. When you see someone respond to the acting secretary of the DHS, you got smacked down, thinking they won this battle, when in reality, the state has agreed to deploy state police officers to provide security. They're not abolishing the police. They're emboldening the police.
Yep.
They're expanding the police. They lost, but still think they won.
Who got smacked down? Yeah. It wasn't the DHS. It was you guys.
So I'd be willing to bet.
The peaceful protesters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you missed that earlier, the peaceful protesters throwing the Molotov cocktail.
No, it's an instant campfire.
Oh, I'm sorry. Instant campfire.
Campfire.
Instant warming method.
TM.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, man, I don't know what we can expect to happen come November. I'll say it 50 billion times. But based on the fact that all of these media companies are in the same bubble, believing the garbage coming out of the New York Times, they think they're going to win.
They think they're going to win.
The same thing happened. Look at this. So they don't have, actually, you know what? I think I have the other tweet right here. Around 2010 is when white people and racism started skyrocketing at the New York Times. And you can see, around 2014 and 15, it was very, very high. Hey, that coincides with the time that Donald Trump was campaigning. They were convinced he was losing because they have to keep telling themselves we're winning.
That's a good point.
They want to tell everybody how dumb Trump is because Trump is dumb gets clicks.
That's true.
When in reality, most people liked him.
And newsflash, he's not dumb. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he built the best economy in 70 years, you said? Is that right?
Something like 70 or 80 years is ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Until COVID.
True, but that's not his fault.
Right. And people still trust him more on the economy than Joe Biden. So now you can look at this graph and what do we see? Up to 2020, it's worse than it's ever been.
Yep.
So why should I assume things got better if the media still doesn't understand why they were wrong in 2016?
Their bubble is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So the circle of the people that they talk to is getting becoming more potent, if you will.
I have some bad news there.
Oh, goodness.
Subscriptions are growing for the New York Times.
Okay.
Their revenue's up.
For American subscriptions?
That's a good point.
Or just internet subscriptions?
General subscriptions.
Okay, so that doesn't mean anything to me.
But it's also fair to point out, too, they may just be capturing more of the far left. Their subscriptions may be growing because they're catering now to people who are socialists.
Who want to read the stuff that's in that little bubble that they give.
Right.
Okay.
So the New York Times used to be more centrist.
Right.
And now that they're moving further and further left, yeah, their subscribers are going up because they're dragging some people with them and absorbing some more far lefty
Is
types.
there any graph that shows that how many people they lost over the past 15 years? You know, people going, what are they talking about? I'm not going to follow these people. And my subscription goes down. And then, sure, it's now starting to rise again. Then that makes sense because they lost a lot of people. So now, sure, they've got a little uptick.
I'll tell you what, man.
Crazy lefties.
You know, I think there are a lot of like disaffected liberals. They don't speak up, and so they get ignored, and that could be one of Trump's greatest advantages.
Yep.
So I tweeted something once about being a disaffected liberal, and it got retweeted by Mike Cernovich.
Okay.
And he has a bunch of Trump supporter followers. So as soon as he retweeted it, I started getting a bunch of replies from Trump supporters. Some lefty then commented saying, "Look at all of the replies, Tim. Look what you've become. Your followers are all conservatives." I responded with, actually, it's because a Trump supporter retweeted me.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a whole bunch of people responded that they were liberals that have been following me for years. They just don't tweet. And I was like, boom, there it is.
Nice.
A lot of the people who followed me, I have people who follow me since back at Occupy Wall Street. I get emails from people who are like, been following you since Occupy. I can't believe what's happened to the left. A lot of the people during Occupy Wall Street were very libertarian, very much so in favor of WikiLeaks, were against the, they believe wealth inequality is a big problem, but they're not socialists. They just think that the working class people need, we need a strong middle class and a strong working class.
Boom. I'm finding a lot of similarities with my beliefs right now.
And they don't like war. They want our troops brought back.
I'm a libertarian. I think that really sums up my political views the best, is libertarian.
I find something, was really fascinating that there was, I think it was the American Conservative argued Trump should have fired Bolton and hired Tulsi Gabbard.
Good point.
Because she's anti-intervention.
That's true.
And they were like, the true conservative position is not to be in foreign wars.
Yep.
And if Tulsi would get Trump to do that, then that's the right choice. And it would attract many, liberals who think that he's bringing somebody on who's, got more liberal sensibilities.
Yeah.
But I do find it fascinating that there are a bunch of core issues that unite conservatives and liberals under Trump because Trump ran as a moderate. So you want our troops out of the Middle East? You're not voting for Biden? You get... I had a friend of mine message me about collateral murder, where like it's just Middle Eastern war stuff, and so she's super far left, and I was like, "So you voting for Trump?" She's like, "No," and I'm like, "Were you gonna vote for Biden?" Yeah. Oh, so you're supporting intervention in war? I'm sorry, man. I get it. You might not like the guy. You may have problems with his policies, but if your issue is war, the best bet you have right now in terms of actually some policy that you'd like is Trump. And I'm not saying it's perfect, not in the least bit.
Yeah.
But Joe Biden? Nah. So I'm looking at this stuff, man, and I'm really wondering just how bad the bubble is. But I'll tell you this. Go on YouTube and look up any political issue. And it's crazy how you'll see what's popular and what isn't. Left-wing content does not do as well as it used to.
Nope.
Now there is
but
there is mainstream that does way better, right? So the interesting thing is when it comes to individuals who search and choose, it tends to be moderate to conservative, anti-establishment content. When it comes to the general default liberal, they're going to watch NBC, CNN, MSNBC, whatever, and just get those fake news comments.
Okay. Yep.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. If you want to catch the full show, tune in to this channel, subscribe, hit the like button, or check us out on iTunes and Spotify, and we will soon have this podcast up for free on all podcast platforms. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next episode.